But most of the people who are falling in love with AI are the ones who can't fall in love with human beings, frankly. Hyper expectant on NVIDIA and considering it to be Jesus Christ reborn. I think the guy who's brought the conversation back to founder mode more than anyone else is actually Elon Musk. Where is he in founder mode? In X, where they're losing money?
Do you really see a world where everybody will be AI literate?
Just because I'm literate, I can't build a nuclear reactor. Obviously, you will need specialists.
Ilia is back.
This is the power of a name. What do they know of AI who only AI know? And so you need to know so many things beyond it, the ethics, the whatever. And so that's why AI and beyond.
Good evening and welcome to Thinkly Talks. We are back with Jaspreet and his community Plurality Dialogues. Jaspreet, how you been? It's been a long break now.
You're the one who's been sick, Vivek. So
No,
care of your
that
health.
is true. No,
And
much better now.
No. Yeah, no, good for that. No, I know it's been a while. I think life happened in between.
Right.
But I've been good. Thank you very much.
Great. So I think, Jaspreet, as always, today we're going to be touching on a topic which is very close to your heart, which is about AI literacy. But as always, before we go down that path, let's just do a quick overview of what's really happened over the last few weeks. A lot has happened, but let's just try and pick up some of the more interesting recent ones, and then feel free to add whatever you'd like at the end of it all. So I think let's begin really with one which we exchanged some messages over on WhatsApp. Ilia is back. I mean, he obviously, after the coup attempt that happened, I think in last December, has been missing in action, has been missing from the media. But his company, Safe Super Intelligence, which is I think all of 3 months old, raised a humongous $1 billion round of funding on a valuation of $5 billion. I think the best part of the company is that it just has a single stated goal of being a one product, one goal company, right? Which is about safe super intelligence. So Jaspreet, your thoughts on that?
No, you've said it all. I think this is the power of a name. In many people believe that OpenAI, while the face of it was Sam Altman, the real brains behind it was always Ilia. His leaving, I think, was quite a shock for OpenAI. And the $1 billion, which I'm struggling to find another seed startup which is $1 billion, I think has largely been because it's him and the belief that the people have in him. As you rightly said, it's just single product, which is great. Let's see how long that lasts. And the fact they don't even have a website. They have like 8-10 people, not even a website. It's just a manifesto. But I think if it's really what safe super intelligence that they want to create, then I think it's a really laudable goal. But we have to figure out how again, like it happened with OpenAI, how the capitalistic forces versus the creating this safety, do-gooding thing, how that struggle kind of plays out here.
But do you think really, one is, of course, do you think we have hit peak AI hype right now with this $1 billion fundraising? Like you said, you want to call it seed, pre-seed, whatever term you want to go with, right? So this is really the first round of funding. So one is that. And I think this is a very interesting, thought that I heard from Reid Hoffman's, one of his podcasts, where he apparently was one of the first few investors into OpenAI, $10 million, and I think Elon put in $44 million. Reid knew that this was just meant to be a philanthropic, venture. Elon, of course, is now suing the company. So we have all kinds of, twists in the tail out there. But Reid actually said that this whole thing about OpenAI becoming, moving from not from profit to actually a profit entity, he said that was really some form of a genius in Sam Altman's, thing, because that is what enabled the company to raise those billions of dollars in pursuit of something like this. So I think in a ways he was hinting that capitalism always is the right way to go.
Obviously, he's going to say it was a stroke of genius because his 10 million, I'm sure, has grown up to whatever number of billions that it has grown up to. But in a way, he's right. Look, we have known, forget about AI, we've known that you have to create a sustaining impact organization for it to continue creating impact. It cannot always be dependent on charity or donations or whatever. There are very, very few organizations which can actually continue like that. And so, in some sense, yes, and I know it's extremely difficult where to draw the line between this impact part and the profit motive. And more than anyone else, OpenAI is struggling to discover a model, which will allow them to do that. I don't think any of us know what that model is.
Right. Now, moving along, and I think just on that, there was, of course, a byline to Reid Hoffman's $10 million. Apparently, he got no stocks for that either, just like Elon.
Oh,
So
oh,
interesting, he just calling it sour grapes. So he said, "Look, I said, don't ask me too much about Elon because I'm going to be not very charitable about, the situation that he's at." But anyway, just moving along, we all, there's a lot of speculation as to why, Ilia really left, and a lot of people say that it was all about Q Star, that apparently he saw, enlightenment happening. I mean, the singularity happening out there in the product called Q Star, which apparently now people are saying is it's called Strawberry, and I think Sam has been teasing with his tweets around the Strawberry. So you want to talk about that as to why is Strawberry, which is all about analytical reasoning, such a big deal?
it is a big deal if true. Now we don't know whether what did Ilia see, which became a meme topic kind of thing. Okay,
Yeah.
whether it was Q Star, which is strawberry, blah. Uh, Strawberry is not super intelligence or singularity. With Strawberry, which is expected to come out probably this month or next month,
Mhm.
and probably will be named GPT-5. GPT-4 plus Strawberry will probably be GPT-5. Meera Murati, the CTO of OpenAI, hinted about it earlier, saying that the next GPT release will have PhD level intelligence. And I think the big deal here, if it is true, is that this will bring in reasoning and mathematical abilities. See, to put it very simplistically, if you say 3 plus 5 to a to ChatGPT 4.0 today, it probably would give you the right answer that 3 plus 5 equals 8. But
Mm.
the right answer 8 is coming because in its vast data set of the internet,
Mm.
every time 3 plus 5 is written, 99% of the time, the answer is given 8. And so probabilistically, 8 is the right answer, not deterministically, but probabilistically. To get a determinist answer, you actually have to do a mathematical addition, which the
Right.
models as they stand today are not capable to. And obviously 3 plus 5 is simple, but when you get to higher maths, then
Yeah.
probability doesn't work. And it's huge, massive amounts of hallucination. Now, what Strawberry is promising is this reasoning, this mathematical ability. And I think if that's true, it will be a significant step forward. And I have no idea how they're cracking it, but it will be a significant step forward and again put them, leagues ahead of all the other models.
Jaspreet, just on that part, if you could kind of double down, the point that you made, right? I mean, we've heard a lot that LLMs are great in really predicting the next token, the next word, right? And like you said, it's not really capable of analytical reasoning. Now, all these deterministic models through machine learning have been around for a long time. Why does it seem to be such a big issue with LLMs? And why haven't really people kind of gone down, let's say, like a fork, right? I mean, if it needs
Yeah.
tokens, go down path one, and if it needs, ML, go down part two, and finally just give consumers what they want. I mean, why is such a big deal?
Well, I think there are 100 people in this world who understand LLMs.
Mhm.
Okay, there might be 5 who understand quantum computing. Okay, and there are 100 who understand LLM. I'm not one of those 100. Okay, and
Right.
so I would not be able to give this. Ilia is one of those 100. Okay, so I would not be able to give these a very good answer to this. But I think the basic architecturally that LLMs are probabilistic by nature, and therefore they will forever hallucinate. Now, could you build in this quote unquote deterministic fork? Okay, using machine learning, using whatever. If it's something like this, go there and do. Maybe that's what Strawberry is doing. Okay, maybe
Right.
you've cracked it. That's what it is doing. Actually, people, Gary Marcus, etc., have been for years now, and now he has a new book coming in. I've pre-ordered it. Years now have been saying that we need to bring symbolic AI back rather than
Mm.
just pure deep learning. And symbolic AI is actually this reasoning part. Okay, which was abandoned, and symbolic AI basically brings in if then kind of logic. Okay, back
Right.
into probabilistic thing. So I think neurosymbolic AI. So I think it is probably that is the path that probably Strawberry has cracked, managed to do, which
Right.
others have been working on and have not yet managed to do.
And then, just touching upon, I think the other protagonist when we talk about, let's say AI is really NVIDIA. And, we've seen it kind of hit the high, probably it's all-time high somewhere in June, when it surpassed Microsoft, Apple for a brief period. And now it's kind of showed down. It's back to $2.5 billion. It's still high. It's still the third or the fourth largest company. But in your view, and I just want your perspective, not really as a stock analyst, but really as a perspective, what do you see? You think it's going to hover around there, or it's going to move down? I mean, do we see the crazy spending has again peaked, or are we going to see some sanity return?
So I think if I was Jensen Huang, which unfortunately I'm not, okay, I would actually take a step back and ask the entire world to take a step back.
Right.
Okay, and
breathe.
Kind of breathe and slow down the pace. Okay, I think what has happened is that just because of this boom, which caught everyone unexpected, including them, they had a growth of 262% quarter on quarter last year, right?
Right.
And at that scale, you said fourth largest company in the world, right? At that scale, you can't do a 262% growth. I mean, if they did that, they'll be more than the world GDP like in a few years. Okay, so it's not going to happen. But because they've raised expectations so much and they continue to hype them up, they talk them up. Jensen Huang talks them up. He reduced, I think the biggest mistake that they did was to say that, look, they're going to have a new processor every year. It's crazy. Okay, and they couldn't do it. Right? With Blackwell, they could not do it in 12 months. And so part of the reason why the stock went down was because their Blackwell processor, they couldn't make it in time. It's so difficult. It's physics and TSMC, etc. can't do it. And so I think the time has come to tamp down expectations. Take a breath, as you said. Okay. And I think it's blistering progress. This time the stock grew at that denominator, it grew 100%. Still it went down. Okay. So I think we're just being hyper expectant on NVIDIA and considering it to be, Jesus Christ reborn. Okay. And we need to kind of step back. And I think NVIDIA and Jensen Huang needs to lead it and say that, you know what, guys, breathe.
No, I think that's a great perspective. I think, market will do what it has to do. But I think it starts with the CEO, right? He needs to start setting the expectations and really start calming waters out there, right? Because it's otherwise going to correct at one time or the other, and God forbid when that happens, right? But before we move to AI literacy, I just wanted your perspective on something not directly related to AI, but I just thought I'll get your, there was this essay that came out by Paul Graham called The Founder's Mode. Did you by any chance get a chance?
I didn't read it, but I know that it came and I broadly know what it means.
The reason I wanted your perspective is because, of course, you worked, let's say, at Microsoft. I think by that time it was being run by Satya Nadella, if I'm not mistaken. And you've joined then Mahindra, which is again, you could say a founder-led company. And now over the last few years, you've probably interacted with so many AI startups, right? I mean, where again, it's been a lot of founders, mode, right? I think what he was really trying to allude to in that essay was the fact that, it was based on the talk by Branch Chesky of Airbnb. He said that, listen, I tried to run the company like a manager initially. Like people kept telling me, hire good people, empower them, let them run it. And he said it was disaster all around. But he said then I kind of switched and I went to, let's say, the Steve Jobs way, which is really about focusing, doing script level meetings, meeting with anybody who you want to, really doing things in a different way, not a technical MBA style. And I think what Paul Graham was saying that, I think there's a need for us to think about a manager mode and a founder's mode. Do you really believe that there is a founder mode amiss out there when you interact with founders, or you think it's pretty much the same thing?
No, I don't think it's the same thing. And I think the guy who's brought the conversation back to founder mode more than anyone else is actually Elon Musk. Okay. And especially with the X thing and, he's kind of brought it back. And he got rid of 80% of costs, people, etc., and still the company continues to run, and therefore, everyone is saying, you know what, maybe we can also do the same thing. Okay, and it's kind of brought back that whole concept. I think again, it's kind of, I personally think it's cyclical. Okay, I think we probably, and if I may say so, Microsoft had it, but now Google probably leads the charge of it, of being too many layers between the founder and the rest of the people, and it kind of just the bloat built up, etc. Because and therefore people, it kind of overcorrected towards the other side, and so now we are kind of swinging back to the founder side. Elon Musk himself, I think, is going to be responsible again for the demise of this. Okay, because look, if you think about it, his most successful company is actually SpaceX. Okay,
Right.
and there he's not in founder mode. Okay, the
Mm.
Shotwell, Gwynne Shotwell, the lady who's the CEO, pretty much runs the
Mhm.
company and runs it very well. Okay,
Mm.
and where is he in founder mode? In X, where they're losing money, hand over fist.
Mhm.
Advertisers are,
Boycotting.
and
Yeah.
Tesla. We know what's happening to Tesla. Okay,
Mm.
so I don't think. I mean, I don't think either of these extremes is good. And the other extreme is Google probably today, which is not in founder mode at all. And in fact,
Yeah.
when Eric Schmidt, said something, he had to withdraw it. Okay,
Yeah.
because it was not
Yeah.
proper and not managerial and whatever enough. So I
Mm.
personally, I mean, I think these things keep on coming. The pendulum keeps on shifting as we try and find a happy middle. Some
Yeah.
companies do, many companies don't, and they therefore keep on. I mean, it's like a bicycle. Unless you keep on moving and changing things, you fall down. Okay, and so
Right.
you keep on changing things from one end to the other. It's my view.
Right. No, great stuff. And I think your perspective on Elon was especially very interesting, right? Because I think, he's probably the guy who's really brought the conversation back to the founder mode, how you can really come clean up the company, think differently. But of course, it comes with its own set of nuances in that. I think let's move across to the topic of today, which is really about AI and how, AI literacy and the future of work or the future of life as we know it, right? And why is it so important? I thought we could probably break this down into two parts. One is talking about AI literacy in an enterprise, and then really talking about what can an individual do. A business owner, a professional. How can he really think about AI literacy, right? So I think to begin with that, and I would imagine AI in an literacy in an enterprise is something which is very close to your heart. Having spent few years at the $20 billion Mahindra Group as really the chief digital officer, so which I think is really a catch-all phrase for everything which is like AI. You would imagine digital transformation. All of that would probably be under your ambit at that point in time, right? But I would want to begin off by referring to your book, The Tech Whisperer, wherein in the first chapter, because you and I share interest in philosophy, you talked about the concept of Vija, which is really being about the twice born, right? Somebody who's twice born, and you very interestingly brought up the concept of the digital natives and the poor companies which have to be twice born to become digital, right? So, would love your perspective on this.
I've almost forgotten. It's been so long back. I do
I could
definitely
remind you.
I do definitely want to define AI literacy, but we'll do that in your next question or whatever, because I
Mhm.
think for the audience, it's important for them to understand what AI literacy is. But anyway,
Right,
before that, yeah, I mean, you know, digital transformation is a catch-all. It can mean anything. Today, people are talking about AI-led transformation. In the end, it's the same thing. And the same thing really is that it, transformations, digital transformation, AI transformation, whatever transformation it is 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 all about a company culture, and
right.
it actually lives between your 2 ears, okay, in your head. And many times when people ask me to define digital, I would tell them that it's actually a state of mind. Okay,
Mm.
it's not a technology or a process or a workflow or cost reduction or whatever. It's a
Mhm.
state of mind, how you work and how you experiment and how you're curious and how you kind of take risk or don't take risk, and many such things which I've kind of written in my book also. But yeah, on the on the specific thing that you gave, I mean, I found it useful sometimes and interesting to kind of have mythological or philosophical analogies to what I talk about. It not only interests me, it seems to interest people who read it also. And
Mm.
the whole concept of Brahman, well, not the Brahman of Vedanta, which is a little different, but the Brahman of the Varna, the caste
Right,
system, had this thing that Brahmins are twice born. And by twice born, in a way, it was that in some sense they've broken through the life or death cycle and they are again born as human beings. Okay, so and when you do that sacred thread ceremony, you're born again as so that's the second birthday or the second time you're born, etc., etc. Now, while the thread ceremony is simple to do, to actually for a company to get born again is extremely difficult. Okay,
right.
and I think I guess now that I think about it, it's no coincidence that Satya Nadella is a Brahmin, but he led probably the most effective digital transformations at scale at Microsoft. And both of us were there, and you know how difficult it is for a company to change, to be born again.
Yeah.
And digitally transforming a company and for it to become a totally different state of mind, a totally different culture is almost impossible to do. As difficult it is for you to break through the cycle of life and death and be born again as a human being. And so that was what I had kind of referred to, and that was the context.
No, great stuff. I personally found it very captivating, and I would just want to stay with that, and maybe you could use my second question as a way to answer about AI literacy. I'm really referring to out here now is the matrix that you talked about in the second chapter, which is really about the Western man's digital maturity matrix, right? Which talked about leadership, on the x-axis, and then talked about really the digital, transformation and the intensity towards that, right? Maybe what you could do, Jaspreet, is talk to us about this, and maybe talk as to how AI literacy or AI maturity could, is there a way to kind of, link to this metric?
Actually, no. Okay. But but I will. They're different things. Okay, but
Sure.
I will let me talk through both of them. This is George Westerman, who is a professor
From
of
MIT.
digital transformation
Yeah.
at MIT and Boston College, Babson College, one of those. And he had this very famous 2x2 matrix. And it was very interesting that the most difficult is these digital natives, which is high on intensity, which means technology, product, etc. How well you use digital tools, but the x-axis, which was even more uh, difficult to do, is how you build digital leadership intensity, how you build the people part of it, was which is where most people fail. Okay, and yeah, maybe I see some linkage to AI literacy here, but it's a bit tenuous. But the interesting part is not digital natives. It's not even beginners or conservatives. To me, the most
Mhm.
interesting box here was the fashionistas. Okay,
Mhm.
and he had done a survey of 300 plus companies, and very few of them turned out to be digital natives. And a bunch of them, actually, if not the most of them, turned out to be fashionistas. And fashionistas, as the name suggests, are people who spend a lot on the tools part of it and the technology part of it. And because that's sexy, right? You get in like, I'm getting in like a generative AI something, and I'm getting in, in earlier days, I'm getting in Microsoft Dynamics, or I'm getting in a Salesforce thing, or I'm getting in whatever is the Watson, okay, whatever is the flavor of the day,
Yeah.
and therefore signaling to the world that I'm doing this, and but not building the culture and the mindset, etc., which is really what will take you far. Otherwise, this becomes a fashionista. It's a fashion. It's a PR thing.
Right.
But in the AI context, something very similar is happening. And you know, today what is happening is that any CEO who doesn't mention the word AI in their analyst meeting uh, or in their annual reports, the stock goes down. In fact, it's become almost a parlor game as to in a Google I/O event or in a Microsoft event, how many times the word AI is said. In the
Yeah.
Google latest I/O event of 110 minutes, the word was said 121 times. Okay, for example. And so, I think again, a lot of that is therefore happening from a signaling standpoint, the whole fashionista standpoint, and very, very few people are focusing on how their workplace is kind of how these employees are kind of equipped for that. And so it's become a long answer because there were two things here. But
Right.
but that's where the literacy part is important. And I'm going to spend like a couple of minutes on this, if with your
No, please
permission.
take your time. Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the things I realized, especially with generative AI, is that
Mhm.
it's a very democratic technology. Okay, when I say democratic, AI is not supposed to be democratic. Okay, but when I say democratic, it basically means that every employee can use it without really. Uh, it's not an IT department thing. Okay, and it's everyone can use it, and unless everyone uses it, it doesn't move the needle. So if only 5 people in your organization could use Excel, it's not going. Excel isn't going to be important for you, and it's not going to move the needle for your organization, or search for that matter. And one of the things I started thinking about was that much like IT was a CIO thing, when the internet came, we thought it would be a CIO thing, but it turned out to be a CMO thing because of
Right.
Google, Facebook ads. With generative AI, I think CIOs will be involved. It's going to be a CHRO thing because at the end of it, this technology is all about productivity efficiency boost, which is a massive, massive use case if it comes about. And productivity efficiency boost will only happen when every employee of the organization can use generative AI. There was a report which came out about a few months, 2, 3 months back, Microsoft and LinkedIn, and they had this very interesting word called BYOAI, okay, which is bring your own AI,
Yeah.
like BYOB, BYOD, and which meant the 80% of employees, actually, according to that report, they surveyed 31,000 people, were bringing their own AI to work and using it to become more efficient. They were not telling their employer because they were either scared or because the boss would think that it's the AI that is working, not the human being. Interestingly, 66% of bosses were not going to hire people unless they have AI aptitude or AI literacy. And that's where I kind of finally come to, and I'll stop after this. I believe that it's not about training, it's not about core specialization in AI. See, the word literacy so far meant you could read, write, do arithmetic. Okay, basic reading, writing, arithmetic. I think that it's going to change to read, write, arithmetic, and using AI tools. As AI and you, we work as co-pilots and with human beings, etc. And so every single employee will need to become AI literate, much like they became literate, and the definition of literacy would change. And that's unless every employee is AI literate, it's not going to move the needle in terms of 17 employees or 5% employees using it while the rest of them kind of stay behind. So that's the high level thing. There are many more nuances, but I'll stop here.
Just to get a better sense of what is different this time around.
Yeah.
Let's say if tomorrow you were to join back a large conglomerate as, let's say, the chief, let's say call it the chief AI officer, right? Versus, let's say, the role that you did as a chief digital officer.
Yeah.
How do you think will the scope be different this time around, and how do you think the implementation will be different?
Yeah. Well, 2, 3 things will be different. Okay, some things will be the same, but a couple of things will be different. So, see, in digital transformation, even with AI, forget Gen AI, normal AI. Okay, AI is tough to do. Okay, machine
Right.
learning, deep learning, whatever, natural language processing is tough to do. You need to be skilled at that. You need to have studied that. You need to have become a data scientist or whatever. And so, there's a particular part of the company which needs to become better and better, and that's the data scientist, AI, whatever, and you need to build that muscle and you need to build that skill. Other parts of the company definitely need to have a mindset shift, okay, from top to down, but they don't need to know how to do machine learning, okay, everyone. Here, it's different. Okay, here, while the data scientists will continue doing what they're doing with AI, and IT will continue doing what it's doing, but here, every single employee will need to be aware and learn and and become curious and empowered within the right guardrails, obviously, to kind of adopt AI, generative AI, especially generative AI, because generative AI, as I said, it's like knowing search. So
Right.
what therefore for me, my job would become every single employee becoming AI literate. It would become having the right kind of guardrails and policies that allow this to happen safely. Okay, it would
Mhm.
become that how a data driven culture, which is slightly different from a digital culture. Okay, a data driven culture especially is very important in our context in India, where we are very much more instinctive rather than data driven. Okay, gets in and becomes more important, okay, than what it is. So and finally, while this technology is still emerging, and so a lot of organizations are saying, let's wait and see, or
Mhm.
they're saying, let regulation come in. But I think that's wrong. One, I would still encourage, make my employees AI literate so that they're starting using AI at home if they're not going to use it at work. Okay, so that when it comes, people are ready. And I
Right.
would reverse the 80/20. And here it's very important. See, what happens is, again, going back to the fashionista graph that you had, okay, that today, as we wait for regulation to come, some of the initial teething troubles to go away, costs to reduce, data leakages, etc., to be solved, I would still have a budget on AI. But rather than spending 80% of the budget in buying new gizmos or new AI stuff, I would spend 80% of the budget on preparing my employees, okay, to be literate so that when it comes, everyone is ready. Those would be the key differences.
Great points. And also when you think about it, there has been, to your point, that people have been very hesitant, especially enterprises, and they
Yeah.
tend to be always on the edge in terms of deploying new technology. There's been numbers like, over the last 18 months, there's been approximately $1 trillion worth of investment that's probably gone into compute. I mean, maybe it's a large number, but definitely like, upwards of $500 billion that has gone into data centers, chips, and so on and so forth. But the enterprises return on that, or the revenue that's come, is like as low as $10 billion. So you're really seeing something which will obviously not keep up, because the cost of compute and the cost of investment has been crazy, but you've not seen these enterprises really doing that. Do you see that at this point in time the mindset will change? I do think there's going to be a big aha moment, like the way it was for consumers as such, right? When we saw the Chat
Yeah.
GPT, which was launched, and said, okay,
Yeah.
do you see that happening, or we are beyond that?
Well, Vivek, everything happens faster than what it used to happen before. Okay,
Sure.
so just the way the world is moving, I think sometimes I believe that we're probably even it's revolving faster than it used to revolve
It sure
before.
is.
So everything is happening bigger, everything is happening faster. Uh, and in this case, the same thing has happened. Now, for example, if you look at the cloud, and it was very interesting for me, I tracked the cloud through about 15, 20 years through Gartner hype cycles. And it
Right.
was very interesting how it kind of actually went through that. But it took almost 15 to 20 years. You think about e-commerce, okay? I mean, you and I were young enough to remember, many of probably the listeners wouldn't have been born, but the amount of Fortune and Forbes covers which have basically said that Amazon is dead and e-commerce doesn't work. Okay,
Right.
you can kind of create a pile of them. Okay.
Right.
And even today, Amazon is south of 20% of all retail sales in the
Right.
US. Okay.
Right.
And in the world, less than 5%. In India, maybe less than 1%. Okay.
Right.
And so things take time. The future takes some time to happen. Okay. It doesn't immediately happen. Now, what has happened in the case of generative AI is, as you rightly said, the aha moment happened for consumers super fast. And
That's right.
enterprises expected it to happen the same way. But enterprise adoption cycles itself are multiple years long for any technology. And we've less than 2 years for this so far. Yeah,
Right.
and so I think it will take longer. Okay. And we are still finding out what are the two or three big things, as it took us massive amounts of time in the cloud to figure out. Now, if eventually people figure out, okay, scalability, security, etc., can happen better, faster in the cloud, and everyone is still not convinced of it. But this will also take a while to happen. One of the things which Benedict Evans, in fact, Ben Evans said the future will take some time to happen. The future takes a while to happen. He also said something very profound from an enterprise context about generative AI. And he said, so far, generative AI is a technology, not a product. Okay, so it's not the iPhone. Okay,
Right.
we think of it as that because of ChatGPT. Okay, ChatGPT is not generative AI. Okay,
Right.
generative AI is a technology, not a product, which means it has to be infused in existing workflows, processes, products, etc., etc. And that process always takes more time than suddenly inventing a product. But
Right.
even today's use cases of generative AI are such that which we didn't have in technologies in the first 5 years. Okay,
Mhm.
or even some of these many radical rethinks which will happen in from apps to agents, for example, or from software as a service to service as a software, for
Yeah.
example. Okay, those are
Mhm.
very, very profound changes, and those will take their much longer than what we want. Until then, we will have these ups and
Cycles.
downs.
Yeah.
And as
Yeah.
A16Z puts it, we will have lots of micro bubbles which will burst. Okay, in
Right.
the in the meantime.
Right. I remember all the articles talking about how Amazon, with its hardly, a bottom line which was so wafer thin, I mean, so many doomsday predictions for this tech giant. I mean, and look at it right now. I mean, the way it's grown. In fact, my wife and I was just joking the other day because there's so many articles talking about the death of quick commerce, like Zepto
Mm.
and and Insta, and I think the joke we had was that we should probably have the government declare it as a public good, pretty much like UPI, so that the company doesn't go out of service. The way it's changed life for all of us, right? I mean, but with this, Jaspreet, you've just recently launched this initiative called AI and Beyond. And I think with the whole idea around trying to tap into this whole thing around AI literacy, so I'd love your thoughts about what we really hope
Okay.
this to do, and how will the scope be different on that?
So here's my time to shill now, my time to sell myself, okay, and my company. But before that,
Please.
the quick commerce bit is very interesting. What has
Hmm.
quick commerce done? Look, in the last since we were born, literally, okay, many of us were born. Kirana shops have been delivering to your house, and they've been
True.
delivering quite fast. Okay, not as fast as quick commerce, but they have always been delivering. Okay, 1 2 hours stuff will come.
Hmm.
Sometimes 15 minutes in Mumbai, in 15 minutes stuff will come. Okay, to your house. Quick commerce has used technology to organize that, period.
True.
Okay, period. Okay. And so, it's a, in my view, a aggregation play, okay, of Kirana delivery. Okay. And it's obviously solved a real need, etc., etc. Quick commerce has not happened in the West the same way.
Yep.
Okay, it's not as popular. Okay, because they were never used to this. Because it's much easier in the West to walk to your nearest co-op store or your 7-Eleven or whatever, and without pollution, without cars hitting you, and whatever, and buy stuff. So it's also a cultural thing. So anyway, that was just my take on Q-commerce. Okay, quick
Right.
commerce. But on AI and beyond. So when this aha moment of AI literacy came into at least my head, okay, then was that, look, I thought that people were looking at this wrongly. People were looking at this through an IT lens, number one. People were looking at this through, whoa, we need more data scientists. We need more and more data scientists. Okay, at the other end. Third was, people were looking at this as, we still need to keep our employees away from this animal called ChatGPT. It'll spoil them.
Yeah.
Okay, and it'll whatever. And there's so much wrong which was happening. And uh, I also saw certain companies not bucking this trend and saying, you know what, let them learn and maybe not use it at work, use at home, but when it's ready, when it comes in, everyone will be ready. I saw these reports of bring your own AI, etc., etc., and those were like light bulbs for me. Okay, BYOAI and all this other stuff. And so I thought that therefore, and then finally, I go and talk to I talk at a lot of companies, talk to a lot of companies, therefore more than 100 plus, and everywhere there was this thing that, okay, now we know that this is interesting, exciting, and it's going to happen. What next? Okay. And so it was with all those reasons that we as in me and a co-founder, Anuj Magazine, created AI and Beyond. The story, this is the reasons, this is the inspiration behind it. But there's this book on cricket, which I've talked to you about, Vivek, called Beyond a
Yeah.
Boundary,
Yeah.
which has this very famous saying, what do they know of cricket who only cricket know? And so I kind
Mm.
of adopted that to, what do they know of AI who only AI know? And so you need to know so many things beyond it, the ethics, the whatever. And so that's why AI and beyond, beyond just AI and beyond just the technology of AI. And so AI and beyond will actually going forward be about AI, quantum computing, and cybersecurity. Three
Mhm.
things. And then much more beyond that. And so what we've started doing, I love AI and beyond.ai as my URL, because if you remove the dot, it's AI and beyond your AI. And what we've started doing is, one, we have tied up with Ashoka University to kind of
Mhm.
set up actually the first in India residential kind of a 3 day, 4 day program for senior executives to just get immersed in AI and learn it holistically. We are debuting it in November. Number two, we have kind of created something we call boot camps, which are not only about just talking about AI, which I do all the time, but taking it beyond to how to use AI in the right way, how to write good prompts, and then 3 4 tools which you can actually use and then carry back with you. And so, in 3 or 4 hours, therefore, you're far more literate about AI than you ever were. And we have a few other things in the pipeline, ethical boot camps, etc. And we're just kind of doing this also for fun, frankly, and hopefully it'll help make many more corporations, and more importantly, the individuals within those, and then individuals beyond corporations, much more AI literate. Because without AI literacy, you know, you're not going to,
Mm.
you're going to be as helpless as you were a few years back if you were not literate about English or arithmetic.
No, I think sounds like a great initiative. In fact, do let us know, do let the community know when Ashoka launches it in November. Would love to be among the first few to visit the 3-day residential course, especially sounds very interesting.
Well,
So that I think that's
soft
great.
launched, soft announced it on LinkedIn just this week, and I'll send you more about it next week.
Okay, great stuff. So there's an interesting, thought starter from Vinod, and I just wanted to kind of expand on that. So Vinod Deshmukh says that how can small businesses or startups leverage AI effectively, considering they may not have the same resources as larger corporation? And I think I would love you to kind of think through this one from the point of view: will actually AI be as a democratizing factor, or will it actually create a divide? Because
Both,
sometimes yeah, so would love your
both,
thoughts on that. Mhm.
both. I think a big AI, old AI, not old, but discriminative predictive AI is very much a big corporation thing. Okay, the
Right.
bigger you are, the better, because resources are expensive, data is expensive, obviously the systems are expensive, etc., etc. But I
Mhm.
believe that generative AI is kind of democratic. Okay, and so anyway, for example, frankly, $20 a month for GPT-4o
Yeah.
gives you a huge amount of power in your hand, of which, much like Excel, we use 2% of it. Okay, and so, and $20 is not a divide between large organizations and small organizations. Okay, and so, and this
Right.
is just GPT-4o. There are so many others which are specific, so many others which are frontier models, etc. So I do think that small organizations, individuals, I'm an individual, I'm like not even an SMB, I am a VVV SMB, okay, very, very, very small business, okay. And so, but I'm using three, four of these tools almost on an everyday basis and getting so much
Mm.
more done faster. And therefore,
Mm.
hopefully having more revenue going forward. So I
Mm.
think generative AI, and today the costs of generative AI are still at pegged high. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that, with all the different, especially the GPU costs, etc., will plummet. And, these
Yeah.
costs will be very low. What I do in the end, however, a lot of people are saying that we should have this for free. I hope that it's never for free, unless it's offered like a UPI, DPG kind of thing, digital public good. I mean, I would rather offer this as a
Mm.
digital public good than quick commerce, to be honest. Okay, but because the moment it's free, it'll get ad monetized, and we'll land up in the same
Right.
mess that we landed up with search and social. And so I think it's
Such
better
as
to give $10,
right.
$5 a month, and
Right.
have that power.
Right. I think Google especially seems to be caught up in all kinds of binds right now with this whole thing about search and what they kind of have the biases, and yeah, but that's another story. But just on this, there was a interesting thought, that one of my colleagues, Rahila, actually asked me before this call. We started this talk, and she was just saying that if you think about AI, I mean, just the way we had software developers, who kind of made us accessible to computers and computing and the power of technology. Do you really see a world where everybody will be AI literate, or will we still have like a job description of called AI interpreters? People who can come in between us and AI. And especially some technologies, when you think about it, where people who have so much knowledge, let's say, of pharma, of really about protein makeup, but they probably are just that one level away from using the power of AI. So, any thoughts on that?
No, no, that's a very interesting question. Like, very frankly, however much we are besotted with generative AI, chat GPT, get out of your house, ask the guy outside, ask the cobbler outside or the rickshawala outside. He has no
Right.
clue. Never heard of it. No idea. Ask him, however, about Aadhaar or Paytm or UPI or Google Pay. He knows that. So in the end, it's not about the technology as much as how we deliver it. And there's
Mm.
this other thing of mine which you know about, which I call Jan AI, which is about making India AI literate. Okay, and Jan AI,
Right.
Gen AI. And I think that, and Nandan Nilekani is talking about it, etc. So I think it will happen. That We'll have
Yeah.
to make sure that in an India context, and therefore across the world in the same way, the way we delivered digital public infrastructure as a digital public good, we'll have to do the same for everyone to become literate. But remember, that's literacy. Just because I'm literate, I can't build a nuclear reactor, okay, or I cannot
Right.
build a chemical plant, okay. And so obviously you will need specialists. So basic literacy you will need for everything, like you need basic literacy for getting on in the world, okay. And you today, every 1.4 billion Indians have basic literacy about digital technologies which help them. So it's not difficult to do. Okay, it's been
Right.
done. So you need that basic literacy for 100 other things, becoming a creator, figuring out what are the local laws, many use cases which are there, which could be just at a literacy level. But then you can't build a power plant with that. And so obviously there will be these domain experts, as you said. And yes, much like uh, people still need to explain things, and there will be interpreters. I think there'll be much like we have wealth managers, we will have people who will manage your data as wealth, okay, and how much of it you want
Right.
to give, sell, etc., etc. So it's going to create this whole new class of jobs and things which we know nothing about today.
Right. No, and I think, especially when talking about this whole India becoming AI literate, I think in many ways, I think it's getting recognized world over that India is probably one of the most, what should I say, inquisitive, curious mind. It's anyway become the hub of startups. I think there was this newsletter I was just signing up for yesterday on AI. And interestingly, one of the, when it kind of asked you about the country of origin, it gave you the option, are you from USA, UK, Israel, India? And then, of course, in alphabetic order, right? So it just shows that how I think it's the digital transformation for India, the startup transformation for India is happening. Jaspreet, I'll just take a bunch of questions. They're not necessarily directed to AI, but I think whenever you're here, there's just so many questions that people want to know. I'm just going to go off script now. So somebody has asked an interesting question. Aisha is saying that what's the most important thing AI can do today that no one's really talking about yet? It's not hit the mainstream media, but anything you want to just talk about, happening in the back room, which is kind of caught your fancy?
I think the thing which interests me the most and is started getting covered in mainstream media. Well, okay, let me just revise that. I think the fact that every time we write a prompt, we are actually programming a machine is
Yeah,
actually the most aha thing about generative
yeah,
AI.
that's really, yeah. I was thinking
And
about that.
I write about it,
Yeah,
but I don't think many people are realizing that the
yeah,
power going will go away from a very small bunch of people who could make machines do something by writing code, is now moving to natural language. And it's not only me, Jensen Huang talks about it, Satya Nadella talks about it, everyone talks about it. I
yeah.
just listen to them and tell you. But the fact that whenever you are writing a prompt, you're writing code. And so, like some people can write great code and some people write average code, it'll how you use language and write prompts well is actually writing code. And therefore, the ability to use language will become more and more important as we go forward. There are many other such aha things, but let me just settle on this one.
Right. And I think on one of the, where do you think there's been a non-aha moment? There's a question here from Sakshi, which says, what's an area where you think AI will struggle to make a meaningful impact? Any area where we thought that, oh my God, this
Lots,
will be solvable. And
lots. So my co-founder Anuj has written a book,
uh-huh.
which basically he's just self-published it, and which basically says he has 53 things where AI will not be able to make an impact. And in the Ashoka course, in fact, he's going to take a lecture on what will AI not do. Okay, and so
Fascinating.
I'm now selling his book, but Anuj's book, which the name escapes me sometimes. I'm just tired. Okay, but Anuj Magazine's book, and so there are many things, and if I was to pick one, I think it's going to be. I mean, we talk about human connection, okay, but I think it's going to be about what is human connection. It's about compassion, it's love, and so there are many roles and jobs that you do which are actually rooted in compassion, love, empathy, touch. Okay, which care jobs, for example, okay,
Mhm.
I don't think are ever going to be replaced by a human being.
But I think
And I
even your professor has talked about social AI, right? I mean, that's been a interesting aspect. You still don't
Yeah,
think
but
it?
Yeah, when social AI happens because of so social AI, Dr. Henry Shevlin talks about it, and it's about humans falling in love with AI, etc. All that is going to happen. But most of the people who are falling in love with AI are the ones who can't fall in love with human beings, frankly. So, and it's about
Uh,
loneliness, the
right.
loneliness epidemic. Okay. And so when you don't have a choice and you suddenly find a possibility, I mean, I can assure you that 100% of them would prefer to be in love with a human being. But the AI came first while the human being wasn't available. Okay. And so yes, all that will happen, but I don't think it'll replace that. And they'll not be fulfilling relationships, at least for long periods of time to come.
No, Jaspreet, I think as always, I mean, there's just so many questions, and I'm just wondering. But I would love you, especially in the digital transformation book of yours, the Tech Whisperer, brought about a very interesting, again a mythological thing. You talked about the Trinity,
Mm.
and you really talked about as to how the business model is really Brahman. Is You talked about how the customer experience is Vishnu, and you talked about how Shiva is all about cultural thing. I'm waiting for you to see, if you haven't already, think about what do you think will be the cycle that's going to happen, or the challenges going to happen. I'm sure you're going to bring in some amount of my. Have you thought about any of these
I
constructs
I
yet? As
do.
you
Yeah. No, no, good question. And it just makes me sad, actually. And the reason it makes me sad is because these days I'm having less and less time to think. Okay. And I've been very keen to kind of find similar, might not be the Holy Trinity, okay, but
Yeah,
similar analogies, but deep analogies, okay,
right.
which would kind of help me define various aspects of AI. And I know they are there, and I know that it's possible, but I don't have the time to think about it, and so I need to figure. That's why it makes me sad. Okay, if I had had the time, if I'd prioritized my life in a slightly different way, I'm sure we would be talking about one of those now. But I guess it'll need to wait for a bit.
We need to schedule an hour someday and talk about pramanas. We've talked about last time, and
Yes.
I can tell you, I've been thinking that when you look at the training models, they're actually doing by the pramana call as really of comparison, because in fact, interestingly, some of the other schools, for example, only talk about perception and inference as really the sources of knowledge. Like Buddhism only talks about those two, but I think here you have the entire thing of training is actually happening through really through this thing, which is really comparison. And then tomorrow, when you talk about ethics, that's about all kind of training model which are coming through the Shabda, right? Which is really about trying to give some kind of deontic laws to how it should be. So I think we should just set aside some time. I
No, no,
really
no,
would love to.
absolutely. In fact, when I was reading about the Pramanas in this, The Six Ways of Learning, which is a masterful book on the
Right.
Pramanas, and I couldn't read all of it, frankly. I mean, you can actually make a matrix between the Pramanas and the schools of Indian philosophy, and some of it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But beyond the Pramanas, there are also the Gunas. Okay, the
Right.
Gunas are Sattvic, Tamasic,
Yeah.
Rajasic. And Guna, very interestingly, translates in English to virtue.
Yeah.
And there's a whole virtue theory in Western philosophy, okay, which
Hmm.
has a lot of bearing and is quite similar and has a lot of bearing on AI ethics. And so there are many such
Right.
streams to explore, in a
Right.
sense. Uh,
Right.
Similarly, in Vedanta, and I won't get into it, there are streams to explore, but we need to do only that.
In fact, I was just talking to my partner Raveen the other day, saying that when you think about single shot, few shots learning, right? I mean, it seems to be the search for this model, which is very strong on inferencing,
Yeah.
where I think where LLMs have really failed, right? And I think the moment you have whether you want to use the word LLM or when you have an AI model which can really do strong inferencing like a human being, right? You throw a human anywhere, he can very quickly, whether he's been trained on that, he can probably start arriving at some kind of knowledge, right? I think that's what we are really looking. But I guess we are digressing right
Vivek, I
now.
think you and I are losing our audience now.
Completely. That's exactly what I said on you. So I think Jaspreet, as always, this was fantastic. I love it when you come in with with your energy, with your thought, your perspective, and I think next time I'm going to also stand up through the talk. I think it just helps us
Yeah,
be so much energetic, right? With that,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
absolutely.
So yeah. So great. Yeah. Thanks so
Great.
much for taking the time. And until next time, keep thinking, keep writing, and all the best to your initiative, AI and beyond.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Vivek. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. All right, have a good one.